All right, so back here on a Thursday, we're just telling you before the break, Virginia head coach being reported now by multiple people that he's retiring effective immediately and has informed his staff. We got Don McPherson here for his weekly visit, brought to you by our friends at Feldman Brothers. And, you know, Don McPherson, who we bring in to talk about football, it's like, oh, I know somebody.
I got a guy.
Yeah.
I got a guy.
How do you got a guy? What do you got a guy?
I got a guy.
You got a guy for everything.
I got a guy in just about every zip code.
Yeah, it's just... You're like, what? Oh, no, hang on. I got a guy. We'll see how tight he is. You texted your guy. He hasn't gotten back to you. He's probably a little occupied right now.
Yeah, he probably is.
Yeah, he just... Your guy probably may have just had his entire life rocked.
He might be saying to me, what do you know I don't know?
Yeah. Your guy may have just had his entire life rocked to the very core. So we'll see if he texts you back immediately. It's nice to have a guy, though. It's always good to have a guy. But, man, again, we were talking about, and this is pure speculation. We have no idea. Tony Bennett... Never met the guy, but you always hear great things. Nice guy. Obviously a fantastic coach. He's won a title. You hope it's not health issues. Who knows what's going on? We wish him the best. But, look, he's 55. We've seen so many coaches now. We were just talking about Nick Saban. Not that Nick's young, but he's not old. What is he? He's about 70. He clearly had more. Clearly has more than 10.
Mac Brown's got to be 90 and still coaching.
Max looked the same age for 30 years. He's fantastic.
Yes.
It's like Coach Mac back in the day.
Exactly.
You get the white hair early.
Right. We thought Mac was old in the 80s.
Yeah, he was old when he was 40, and then all of a sudden he was 80. But you just wonder, in everything going on in college sports, all the stuff we talk about with NIL and, you know, the changing rules and lawsuits all over the place and all the crap coaches can get in trouble for nowadays and all social media and this, like, man, you wonder how much it's worth the trouble at some point, right? If you're Tony Bennett, like, he clearly made more money, but he's made a lot of money. He's won a championship. Like, it's not a bad spot, right?
It really isn't. And when you talk about, you know, on the basketball side, you see all the guys who've retired. The football side, a lot of guys are retired. Look at Warren at the Big Ten. He was the commissioner. He said, I'm going to go to Chicago Bears. Why do I want to deal with college presidents and deal with all the stuff that's coming down?
Like Jay Wright's not old.
Exactly. I think, to your point, I think that the NIL world and the transfer portal world, and now that this new Congress is getting involved and all the different legislation that's going to be involved and all the lawsuits coming down the road, the college game is really a mess. And if you just want to coach, get out and go pro or go down.
Okay, here, it can't get more official than from the Virginia men's basketball team Twitter account. Tony Bennett to announce his immediate retirement and press conference tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So, again, hopefully it's not health related.
Yeah.
But, or if it is, hopefully it's something by retiring that'll be able to take care of. I'll say if it's not health related, we'll probably see him on ESPN by the end of next week.
Exactly right.
He's going to feel right at home on a TV.
That's the best case scenario. Let's hope for that.
Yeah, he'll be getting many phone calls from anyone that televises college hoops or something like that. All right, so that was the complete just. Man, out of the blue story here of this afternoon. Not why you're here, though, Don, but always interesting to talk to you about whatever's going on. You're here from Feldman Brothers, as you always are on a Thursday. Halfway through the season, Syracuse beats NC State. It was not maybe as flashy, I guess, as points to the UNLV game, but, man, you had the lead. You kept the lead the whole way, and workmanlike, I guess, might be the best way to describe Saturday.
I think we used that word before with this team. They are workmanlike, and the first half was a little sloppy in the red zone, a little sloppy on the offensive side. Defensive side wasn't that sharp as well, but they come out in the second half and get it done, and I think that's a good sign of the resiliency of this team. And I have to say, if we start looking at, like, mid-season grades, obviously the offense is doing great. Defense got some work. Special teams need to go back to
they need all the new grades.
Exactly. Yeah. But mid-season grade, Fran Brown, I think, has done a great job. He's done a great job of managing this team and showing it, you know, through all the special teams problems, but showing how resilient they are in the fourth quarter and overtime against UNLV.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things we've seen from Fran now, 6 games in, specific to the coaching. I mean, obviously we talked the recruiting and the dart and all the other stuff that goes on with it. Like, has he made mistakes? Absolutely he's made mistakes. But he doesn't say, yeah, we won the game. Who cares about that mistake? He's like, yeah, we're going to figure this out and do it better the next time. And he'll tell all of us that he's going to do that. And that gives me great faith that maybe in 2 weeks, all right, that mistake is not a mistake anymore.
There's great advice that every athlete, I don't know about other sports, like I don't talk about football. There's great advice that every football player hears as a young player from a coach in a meeting, never in public. If you're going to make a mistake, make it at full speed.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to make a mistake, make it trying your best. And I think that's what to me, to your point about Fran Brown, I think has he made mistakes? Yes. Has he had some great moments? Yes. but he's doing it at full speed. He's unapologetic about how he's coaching this football team, and that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah, what is that? Like defensive coordinators will always say something like that. I'd rather 11 guys screw it up fast than one guy screw it up slow.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
Like if you got 10 guys in the right spot, they're going to beat the 11th guy for a touchdown.
As we used to always say, false hustle leads to false results.
There you go. You can accidentally end up in the right place
that's right.
at some point. So we'll see how that goes. But it is fascinating to watch this team because, on one way you could look at it, you're like, some teams I feel, because these games always seem to just, no matter what the score is, they get close to the end. Sometimes I feel that's, you're playing to your competition. With the Syracuse team, it feels like, they're just not quite hitting on all the cylinders yet. They have room to go later in the season, like if they can click a few more things.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this in September when you have no preseason in college football, and then you add on transfer. How many new guys are working together? We talked about this with the offensive line a couple of weeks ago, how it takes that unit to gel and perform as one unit. You're starting to see how guys respond to adversity. You're starting to see how guys respond to getting enough playing time or not enough playing time. And that's, I think, is part of the special teams problem. So you're seeing teams that are starting to mature. There's a ton of college football talent out there. If you watch games, all day, you'll see just a ton of great performances. But it's the teams that are coming together at the right time is what we're going to find out in October.
Yeah, and this team feels like, we'll see, but it feels like they understand, right? Like almost to a man that, we're 5-1. That's great, but we could do this better. We could do that better. Yep. And then you almost hear, we will do this better.
Yeah. And I think when you mention all the things that Fran Brand has instilled in his team, you talk about Dart, and you talk about him coming in with the pedigree. He's got lofty goals. He's got big things, and he's trying to keep them focused on those things. I think it's a really good philosophy that he's come in with that has given the team, through adversity and through the slog of September, something to stay focused on.
Yeah, I don't know how you took it in. Obviously, Don, you go back to your senior year, you did win all the games, so going 11-0. But, Fran comes in, his opening press conference is like, win the conference national title. It's like, okay, great.
Right.
It's like,
exactly.
That's fantastic, wonderful thing to say. But if you could win like 8, that'd be neat.
That'd be great.
That'd be neat. Now we get here 5-1. He's like, maybe this guy ain't so crazy. And now we sit here like, well, if they do this, this, and this, the ACT title game, like it's starting to infect everybody thinking like that.
And even as you look at the rest of the schedule, obviously Pitt's a tough team.
Yeah.
They got two top 20 teams, Pitt and Miami. Miami's great. Miami is what they're built to be. But we get to Miami at the end of the season. Who knows what it looks like at that point? Remember Florida State, at that time last year.
Yeah, things happen.
Things happen. And so they've got a shot. You look at you got UConn, Virginia Tech is not what we thought they would be.
No.
And so the schedule does look favorable for them to get maybe 9-10 wins.
It's in play. It's in play.
Absolutely.
And that makes what we're going to get next week, I think, so fantastically exciting. Syracuse and Pitt, obviously, they played every year since 1955. It's been a minute. And when you were here, that was during a great run of Syracuse dominating the series. For the last 20 years now, it's been Pitt dominating the series. It's odd. Like, both teams haven't really been up at the same time in a long time. Maybe it's not odd. Maybe that's a recruiting thing when you think about the players they're going after. This feels like one of the bigger Cuse-Pitt games that I can recall. I don't know about you.
I think you're right. I think when both teams made the move into the ACC, it kind of watered down their recruiting pool. And when Pitt and the Pitt-Penn State thing started to water down, all those kind of rivalries kind of went away. I'm so glad that Pitt still plays the backyard brawl. That keeps a lot of local talent in Western PA. But you're right. I think this is the first time in a while that this game means something for both teams at a critical point in the season. Yeah,
and it'll be Thursday night, ESPN. Like, people watch. Like, usually, Syracuse plays Pitt. We're interested. They're interested. But it flies under the radar on the national scene. This year, like, people will be they have no choice. People will be watching this game.
And if you go back a year to when they played Pitt last year, it was just dreadful.
Could we make sure that one flew under the radar?
That film should be, everything about that game should be erased. And I've got friends down at Yankee Stadium, and they would just, they were more than anyone. So
we need like the Men in Black mind eraser thing. Yes. Did they play there?
Without question.
100 years of college football, you say? That doesn't sound right.
That's right. And so this game is actually a 180 from that. Yeah. This game really means something that hopefully the Dome will be packed. And as you said, primetime television Thursday night.
The only thing I can, and I will guarantee this, I suppose it may not happen this way, but I feel solid guaranteeing this. There will be one more quarterback doing a backflip from the game last year than this year. I think that was the big game.
He's still on the. Well, he's not on the field anymore. I was just thinking Valeria, who had a great game
Yeah.
In that game and saved them. But yeah, one less quarterback doing the backfield.
Yeah, though I liked what they did last week. I've been waiting for this all year because as much as we joke about it and as much as November was like, what is happening last year? It was, an invention by necessity, what they came up with the offense last year. Like, well, I know you got McCord. You want McCord to have the ball. But, like, the Villari thing last year worked.
Yes.
Like, more than you'd think.
Out of total necessity.
Total necessity. He hadn't had a carry this year until last game. I'm like, I'm not saying you do it all the time, but to see it mixed in as an option still makes sense to me. And like, all right, here's a different way. I'm not saying do it 10, 15 times a game, but what did they do it 3-4 times last game? I'm like, okay, I kind of get it here.
And there, I hope, if you think that coaches are thinking the way that you hope that they are, you throw that in there just to remind the Pitt coaches that guy is still on the roster.
Yeah. Hey, remember him?
Remember this guy? Because he beat you last year. He's still on the roster.
Yeah. I really like to play, there's the shotgun ones where he just barrels up the middle. That little quarterback sneak thing they ran with him where he was a tight end in motion, came back under center and went. I'm like, that's interesting in a way that, like, roster-wise, other teams would not be able to accomplish.
You just have to give the defensive coordinator something to look at, something to prepare for. And to your point, I think, they're going on Kyle McCord's arm. That's working for them. Mm-hmm. LaQuint Allen is not getting the touches that I think that everybody expected him to get, but he's being very productive. On the only game they lost, Stanford, LaQuint Allen only had 25 yards. Every other game he's been 75 plus. They've got to get him the ball, I think, in the scheme of an offensive mind, to get him the ball. But when he's had it, he's been very productive with it.
Yeah, and I think part of it, too, is we need to adjust the thought, I guess, of how he's getting the ball. He's got, I believe it's 31 catches now. Dwayne Kinnan has the single-season record for Syracuse with 39.
I smile when I hear Dwayne.
Yeah, so there's one of your guys.
One of my guys.
So that record's been going, I think it was 88 or 89. I don't think you threw him.
No, I didn't. I didn't. It was 89 out of Livonia Ave in Brooklyn, New York, Dwayne Kinnan.
Yeah.
I think it was Todd Philcox or Billy Sharp.
Yeah, I think it might have been Sharp that year getting him the ball. So that record's going to be gone in a couple weeks. Like that tells you, okay, maybe it's not the carries, but I've seen time of possession the last two games. Time of possession and the volume of passes Syracuse are throwing don't make sense, but they're doing it in a way that's like, all right, here's the thing right now.
A lot of short passing game. We talked about this with maybe some questions on the O-line, but giving the O-line some help, getting guys the ball out in space, not deep balls, but getting them out in space in that first level. That's what they've been doing. It's been working. Gadsden's been great in the past few games, and getting the ball to LaQuint Allen in the flat, out in the wing, has been very productive for him.
Yeah, Gadsden has kind of returned to form here the last two games. We saw Trevor Pena early. He's still been very good. Now here comes Jackson Meeks, right? The last two games, he's been the best pass catcher out there. You got three guys that are all averaging 70 yards a game. Man, what value that is, and how do you guard that? Because the second you focus on one, right, McCord's like, okay, great, I'll throw it to these guys are good too.
Exactly. And again, talking about defensive coordinators, that gives them a lot to look at, no guys to key on. Mm-hmm. And to your point about how they can be methodical in the pass game, how important it is. I've always said this for years, and I'm an old school guy. I think you can't win a championship without a fullback and a tight end, because that's just old school football right there. And I love that. But Gadsden, I think.
Where's the Moose? Get him back.
Bring back Darryl, right? But Gadsden at that position, he's got wide receiver skills, he's got tight end size and hands, and he's such a dangerous guy to have, because he's always that guy. The tight end was always your outlet. He's always your first down guy. He's always the guy that's going to have his numbers squared to you. And Gadsden's great for that. And I'm glad to see that McCord is starting to find him in the offense.
Yeah, I'd say everyone remembers Mike Owens from the West Virginia game. The play before that, you found the tight end.
Pat Kelly. Yeah, we had a 6'6" guy in the middle against a 5'10" defensive back. Mm-hmm. Strong safety. We win that battle every time.
That worked out real nice at the time, and it hasn't stopped working here now. 30 some odd years later, we got Don McPherson, our weekly visit with Donnie, brought to you by Feldman Brothers Automotive, getting you ready for Cuse and Pitt. That'll be a week from tonight down in the Steel City. And this Kyle McCord stuff is not getting less fascinating as the year goes along. To show up, like you hear, like I didn't watch him closely last year. Like very often the games, they're at the same time. You're busy with the Syracuse games. It was hard to watch their games. But you hear all this stuff, and they're like, well, who's this guy? I'm like, well, you're undefeated. Why are you complaining about your quarterback all the time? And he's like, oh, he doesn't do anything, blah, blah. And then you the guy we're watching, I don't know how much he's broken from that last year, if we were just getting fed wrong stuff. Like, everything we're seeing is not what I heard out of Columbus last year.
You know what's interesting is that he was very productive in Columbus. I think it was the switch was kind of odd, especially when they
threw for 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns.
Exactly. He was fantastic for them. And I think what the guy that you got now is unlike some of these guys. Like, you see all the guys who've moved around. I can't even start. You just pick a quarterback in the Power Four.
Yeah, it's half of them.
And they've all been someplace else. But a lot of them have gone to like programs. Kyle McCord went from Ohio State that, right now they're one of the best teams in the country. Last year they were pretty much the same, top 10, top 5. And a team that has been, had Marvin Harrison Jr., had some great stars. And he was a big star in a room full of bigger stars.
Right.
In a big town. He comes here and Fran Brown gives him the keys to the offense and says, I'm the head coach and you're the next guy on this. And so his maturity, his experience, his knowledge of the game was put on his shoulders. And you can tell for a guy who thought, hey, man, I should have been the guy at Ohio State. I can definitely be the guy here. So he comes here, and everyone here is, to your point, we're all saying, hey, let's rally around this guy. Yeah, how do we get this guy, right? So everyone's thrilled to have him. We all give him the keys to the kingdom, and I think it fit his personality. I think it fits his personality as a leader, as a player, as a smart quarterback to say, listen, I've got the game. I know the game. I know what we're trying to do. And I will tell you, as a player, I was the same way. I hated coaches calling my plays. I always knew what I wanted to do because they coached me to know what I wanted to do. And so when you have a quarterback who's confident about the offense, who knows what his weapons are, where his weapons are, you're going to get a guy who's going to be really fired up, and the team's going to rally behind him, and they certainly have here.
Yeah, and, Fran was talking about Little League Kyle. He wants to, and, run around and that. I don't think it was so much as that, right? It's he wanted him to play free.
Yes.
We see the video of him in the locker room after the game last time, rapping along. We see him cursing out Georgia Tech on the sideline a few weeks ago. That's being free, right? He's out there. He's just letting it fly, and in every phase that is working for him.
And there's an element to that might not just be want him to live free, play free, but you also want him to be one of the guys.
Yeah.
This was when I think about the play free thing, Coach Mack used to always say to me, play within yourself. Just do what you can do. Everyone's going to, rally around that. But I was also a guy, I didn't want to be followed by my teammates. Socially, I was kind of a little aloof in many ways. And if Kyle McCord is the kind of guy we just described, he's the leader. He came from a big program. He's the guy that everyone has confidence in. He's definitely the guy who's getting probably the most NIL money. You want him to be an everyday guy in the locker room. He can be whatever he wants out there doing NIL.
Especially deals. In the NIL age when everyone knows he's getting the money, right?
Exactly. So the playground thing, the Little League thing is just be a kid. Just be a kid with a bunch of other kids in the locker room. It'll go a long way for your game, but it'll also go a long way. When he had that first down run, I'm trying to think what game it was. It wasn't Ohio.
Where he spiked the ball. That was the Georgia Tech game too, wasn't it? I think so.
Tech, yes. That's as much as that got him fired up, that got his teammates fired up.
Oh yeah,
and that's the keys. How do you get your teammates to buy in to what you're doing, knowing that you're going to do what they're doing?
Yeah, I think Fran's response to that was something like, "Kyle, that was great. I loved it. Don't do it again. Don't do it again." Because he was right. Like Fran said it after, and again,
that's when you go, no, great job.
Yeah, but things. It was more the spike. Like I don't know why they didn't throw a flag at you, but they should have. So good. Great, but let's reel it back in. All right, man. I will talk to you during the week. We got to figure out what we're going to do. This will be during the pregame show at this time next week at a normal time. So we'll have to figure out what we're doing next week. But I'm sure we'll talk at some point. Man, looking forward to this game. It should be a fun one next week.
Should be a lot of fun.
There he is. Our guy Don McPherson is always brought to you by Feldman Brothers Automotive. We'll take a break. We'll get more to this Tony Bennett story. See if there's any other developing news out of Charlottesville. Just one of the best coaches in college basketball, out of the blue, retiring effective immediately. Tony Bennett down in Virginia is the breaking news of the day. More on that when we come back. Your calls as well, 315-437-7644. Back next, Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
Q Sports Talk is your place to be for Syracuse football all year long.